Hey guys, I hope your day is going really well. Today I want to share with you 5 side effect advantages to learning a language. By side effect advantages, I mean things that are not just applicable to the language itself. So, say learning German, you'll be able to understand Germans. Okay? That's not a side effect advantage, that's a direct advantage. I'm talking about things that are applicable to lots of different facets of life and can sometimes happen even if you just learn a language for a few hours. So on that note, let's start. The first advantage is that you'll understand English better, or whatever your native language is. Have you ever had someone comment about a noun, a verb, or an adverb, and you just think, I guess so? That more or less disappears if you learn another language. Now I know you're thinking, yay, I get to learn about nouns, verbs, and adverbs. Praise the Lord! But it actually helps a lot more than you might think. It helps when explaining things to children, they can understand you better, but it also helps with your writing. I get so many emails from people I work with that just make me think, are you coming to work drunk? Again, you might think, who really cares? But writing things, even emails and SMSs, more eloquently will get you noticed a lot more than you think. Obviously, if you're looking for employment, then improving your English should be one of your top priorities. The problem is, if you're a native English speaker, improving your English is boring for most people, but learning a language is fun and it improves your English. By the way, there are other ways that it improves your English. It's not just about verbs and nouns and adjectives. It helps in a lot of different facets, especially if you learn a Germanic or Romance language, but I'm going to come back to that in point 3. The second advantage is that you get heaps better at understanding weak speakers of your language. And it's not just if you're learning their language. It actually works no matter the combination. So I'm learning Swedish and French, and I found that I'm now heaps better at understanding people who don't speak English very well. There are lots of contributing factors to this, but I think the main one is that when you're learning a second language, you will get those times where someone just talks at you in fluent French or Swedish or whatever it is, and they're talking way too fast for you to properly understand. So you just have to pick up on every little bit that you can and look at body language and listen for intonation and everything. And those skills get heaps better. And then when you hear people who don't speak English or your language very well, you use all those skills. And so you're heaps better at understanding them. And so being able to understand them better means you are better placed to help them for 2 reasons. The first is that if you know what they mean, then you can offer them the normal way of saying that. You can just say, oh, you mean this. Whereas if you don't understand them at all, you can't do that. But the second is, having been in their situation yourself, you will just naturally be a more compassionate listener, and they will pick up on that through your body language and your facial expression, and thus your help will mean more to them. The thing is, with people living in a country and trying to learn that language, they often actually expect to be corrected. I've heard this especially with Asians living in Australia. They expect to be corrected, but we consider that rude, so we don't offer them a correction. I have heard it from Chinese people that they are disappointed with how little their English is corrected when they live in Australia. The reason we don't do that is that we don't know how to do it without seeming rude. Learning a language yourself means that you will learn how to correct people so that it is actually helpful to them and so that they don't feel pressure while they're speaking. You will come off in your body language as someone who genuinely wants to help them, and you can just say, okay, so what you want to say is this, and they will know that that's coming from a genuine place and that you're correcting them so as to help them and not to belittle them. The third advantage overlaps a little bit with the first, which was that you'd have a better understanding of your own language. But I mean it in a different way this time. This one's more like that you'll be better at trivia, you'll know more things. I don't just mean that you'll be more likely to win a pub trivia, there's that as well. But you'll have a better understanding of the connection between things in your own language that will just make you a better conversationalist. It's obviously going to depend a little bit on the language you learn, but it really does apply to all of them. It's just that the exact effect will change a little bit. The general effect will be that you'll be able to think of more creative ways to say things. For example, I now switch regularly between saying "it doesn't matter" and it plays no part, which I get directly from the Swedish. It's a direct translation. But it doesn't have exactly the same meaning in English as it doesn't matter. It plays no part means a slightly different thing, so it just adds that variation to my everyday speech. If you learn a language with a connection to yours, then your active vocabulary explodes. You already have a greater passive vocabulary than active vocabulary. That is, there are thousands of words that you understand but you do not use. Learning something like French or German or really any Western European language brings these words to the front of your mind, and you start noticing when you hear them in English. And you can make finer distinctions. So where you'd normally use one word for two slightly different concepts, when you learn a language which clearly distinguishes between those two concepts by using two totally different words, you start being pickier in your English as well, and you start being clearer in your own language, and you can convey concepts more clearly and more easily, and people are actually more likely to listen to you, says he who said politicalness in a video and then put it on YouTube. Subscribe. There has actually been research done on this. You can make yourself essentially smarter and more charismatic by using well a wider range of vocabulary. Again, you could just go straight to doing this in English, but it's more fun and more productive overall to learn another language and have the side effect in English. Now, I'm saving my favorite one for last, but advantage number 4 is that you get better at managing your time and managing your personal productivity. I've learned a lot of things in my life, but most of them have been things that you can learn in bits and pieces, like how to fix cars, for example. A language is a big enough undertaking that it forces you to think about how to get the most out of your time and your personal performance, and obviously that carries over into other things. So these videos, for example, I used to film once in a blue moon, but then when I started doing them about language learning, I thought, if I'm going to have time to do these and learn a language and spend time with my wife and son, then I need to come up with a more efficient way to do these. It also means reading things that you might not otherwise read. For example, I know that Tim Ferriss had quite a lot of success with streamlining the learning process, which he writes all about in The 4-Hour Chef, and that in turn led me to read The 4-Hour Workweek. And it hasn't changed my life overnight or anything, but it helped me to challenge a bunch of assumptions about productivity and work and all the rest of it. Basically what I'm saying is language learning is a very specific field with very wide-ranging ramifications. So in the long run, I would actually recommend that you learn not just one, but 2 or 3, because when you get better at learning a language, you get better at learning lots of things. So moving on to number 5, and this is my favorite, you learn how amazing your brain is. Your brain is incredible. It is doing incredible things all the time. And one of the most incredible things that it has ever done is to learn your native language to the level to which it is learned. The speed at which you make decisions and make complex calculations when you are speaking any language that you speak very fluently is insane. And there's nothing quite like the feeling of moving closer and closer to that level in a second language. And I'm not saying my second language is anything like my English, not even close. But you only need to go a short way down the path and you'll discover some very interesting things about how your brain works. For example, one of the strangest feelings that you will have is when you encounter what I call a vocab cliff. It's actually a good thing, because it proves beyond a doubt that you are now speaking a language without using your native language. But it doesn't feel like that. What it is when you are speaking your target language, let's say Russian, autonomously, so you're speaking it without using another language to help you. Your thought patterns are all occurring in Russian, and then, with no warning whatsoever, mid-sentence, that is, you were saying something and you thought you were going to finish saying it, and then you realize you don't have the vocabulary to continue. Now you're probably thinking, well, why wouldn't you just go back and start again, or try to complete the sentence in a different way? That's not what happens. Your brain gets stuck in this loop of looking to complete the sentence using vocabulary that just does not exist, or as far as it's concerned, it does not exist. And you would think that in the absence of Russian words, English would come flooding in to fill the void, but it doesn't. That's why I call it a cliff. It's like you've gone sprinting full speed off the edge of this cliff and you go to grab onto something and there's just nothing there. You just fall into this abyss. And it feels weird and it's a bit awkward, but it's a good sign, especially the first time it happens, because it means that your brain has decided that you no longer need the crutch of your native language to survive in this new language. You can get by without it. But it's also just interesting from a psychological perspective, because if you try to switch off the words in your head at any other time, you basically cannot do it. Maybe some kind of meditation gurus out there can do it, but I can't do it. Whereas I have fallen off vocab cliffs like 7 or 8 times, and there is nothing down there, just darkness. Anyway, that's just one such example. Again, there are heaps of other examples. Things where if you learn a language, you will just wake up to something that your brain is doing and you'll think, damn, my brain is good. And it makes you appreciate it more, and it makes you want to look after it more and not just look at memes all day. Guys, what have you gotten out of learning a foreign language? I'm sure I've forgotten something, so please feel free to leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on this. I love talking about foreign languages and foreign language TV shows and movies, so please subscribe if you're new here. I've got more content coming out all the time. In fact, today I am filming 6 videos, so if I don't die, you'll be seeing a lot in the next 2 weeks. So join in on the party. Thank you so much for watching, wherever you are, whatever language you call your own. I hope you really enjoyed this. I'll see you next time.